Hello, welcome. So today we're in r/LetsNotMeet, where terrifyingly, two of these posts involve somebody having a person living in their house that they were not aware of. So if that sounds like something that would interest you today, stick around and enjoy. And feel free to like and subscribe, please. So today I'm going to be formatting this video a little bit differently. I'm going to read through the whole of the post. I am not going to give any comments or my thoughts on the post until the end, so you can stay nicely in the uncomfortable, spooky zone until the post is up. But I will give my comments at the end as a nice little palate cleanser in between stories. And if you stick around till the end, I will also give you a little bit of void lore and tell you one of my very own Let's Not Meet stories. This first post is called The Man in the Crawl Space. This happened to me about 5 years ago, and even now I get chills just thinking about it. I was renting a small house in a quiet neighbourhood at the time, and it wasn't anything fancy, but it was cosy, affordable, and had a lot of character. The only thing I didn't love was the crawl space under the house. The access door to it was in the laundry room and a square wooden hatch flush with the floor. It was locked from the outside, and I never had any reason to open it. I figured it was just pipes, cobwebs, and the usual creepy stuff. One evening, I came home late from work. It had been a stressful day, and all I wanted was to shower and collapse in bed. As I stepped inside, I noticed something strange. My laundry room light was on. I was sure I had turned it off that morning, but I chalked it up to being absent-minded in my rush and turned it off again. That night, I woke up around 2 a.m. to a faint noise. At first I thought it was just the wind, but as I lay there, I realised it was coming from the laundry room. A soft, rhythmic, thumping sound. My heart started to race, and I was debating whether to get up and check or just stay in bed and hope it stopped. Curiosity got the better of me, so I grabbed my phone for light and tiptoed to the laundry room. When I opened the door, everything was quiet. But then I saw it. The hatch to the crawl space was slightly ajar. My stomach dropped. I distinctly remembered it being locked, and there was no way I could have accidentally opened it. Trying to stay calm, I convinced myself it might be an animal and that something had gotten in. I shut the hatch tightly and placed a heavy box of detergent on top of it before going back to bed. The next day, I called the landlord to ask if there were any pest issues I should know about. He seemed surprised and said no one had reported anything like that before. Still, he promised to send someone over to check it out. That night, I double-checked the hatch and even put a chair on top of it for good measure. I didn't hear any noises, and I started to feel a little bit silly for being so freaked out. But around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of my bedroom door creaking open. I froze. My bedroom door doesn't creak unless you push it slowly. I knew I had closed it before bed. I stayed as still as I could, barely breathing, as I heard soft footsteps shuffle into my room. My phone was on the nightstand, just out of reach. The footsteps stopped, right next to my bed. I could feel someone's presence, their quiet breathing in the dark. Summoning every ounce of courage I had, I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and swung it toward the intruder. There was a man crouched on the floor, his face pale and gaunt, his eyes wide and unblinking. He looked just as startled as I was. I screamed and I bolted out of the room. Running outside to the neighbour's house, I banged on their door until they let me in, and they called the police. When the officers arrived, they found the man still in my house, hiding in the crawl space. He had a small mattress, some food wrappers, and a collection of random items he must have taken from my house. The lock on the hatch had been tampered with, and from the looks of it, he had been living under my house for at least a few days, maybe longer. The scariest part? The police said they found a notebook with detailed notes about me. He had written down my daily routine, when I left for work, when I came home, even what I wore. There was also a list of plans, though they wouldn't tell me what was on it. I moved out the next week and stayed with friends until I found a new place. To this day, I have no idea how he got in or how long he had been watching me before I noticed something was wrong. To the man in the crawl space, let's not meet, ever. And then down in the comments, Tend to Mist says, Jesus, that is terrifying. It's probably very good that you found out about him when you did. And it's probably not very good. I read this as I'm trying to sleep. Glad you're safe now, OP. And then the OP replies, thanks, Maine. It gave me a bit of anxiety, but sharing it here has helped me cope with it a bit. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Having somebody living in your house and you don't know about it, and then they come and stand over you while you sleep. They're keeping notes about you. The police won't tell you what was on these weird little plans that they had. Oh my God. The goosebumps that I have right now and the shivers up and down my spine are incredible. As obviously a single woman living alone with just my 2 kids, the thought of having a random bloke living in my house, oh, it gives me the ick. It makes me want to heave a little bit, actually. Luckily, we don't have crawl spaces in a lot of houses in the UK anymore. We have an attic, but there's no access to it from the outside. You have to get in there through coming through the house first. So, as much as I'm going to be listening out for noises in my attic tonight, I'm pretty confident, touch wood, that there is not a creep in my attic. I am so glad that the OP just bolted out that house and got out okay, and they found somewhere else to live, because my life, oh, no. Casey Pie then says, this is shockingly terrifying. I got actual chills down my spine. What do you think the plans were? As a woman, I'm scared to even think about the possibilities. Glad you made it out safe, and well done for reacting quickly. And then OP replies, I do not want to think about those plans. Even a little thud sound at my house gives me the chills. Highly understandable. This next post is titled, In Senior Year, I Got Really Bizarre Notes from a Secret Admirer. When I was a freshman in high school, Alyssa was my role model. Alyssa was a senior. She was so gorgeous, confident, smart, effortlessly stylish, and always owning the room. Back then, I was too shy to talk to her. Seniors are already pretty intimidating to freshmen, but Alyssa was next level intimidating because she was such a queen. I didn't expect anyone to see me the way I saw Alyssa, but I was pleasantly surprised in my senior year. In my senior year, I started finding cute little notes in my locker. I wasn't expecting that at all, but I was really flattered. The first one said, "You were beautiful in that dress on a Friday," with a little heart. The handwriting was neat and simple, with a cute little heart at the end. More notes kept coming. Always in fourth period, I got a note every week or two. I know they came during fourth period because I checked my locker before and after every class. They were all really sweet, and they said things like this: "Your smile lights up the hallway. You shine brighter than any star. Your homecoming photos are straight out of a magazine cover. So stunning." There were more notes that I don't remember. They weren't romantic or flirty. They looked like things I might have said to Alyssa if we'd ever spoken. I thought maybe they were from a shy underclassman girl. I had my suspicions. I didn't tell anyone about the notes. I really didn't want my friends turning this into an investigation and embarrassing whoever was leaving them. Whoever was leaving these messages, I thought they meant well. Then, in the second semester, my schedule changed. My class of the day was upstairs near my friend's locker. My friend's last class was near my locker. We swapped lockers. I forgot all about the notes until my 18th birthday. That morning, my friend handed me a note she found in my old locker. It said, "Happy birthday, princess." At first, she thought the notes were meant for her, since any of these compliments could fit her too. But when she realised her birthday didn't match up, she put two and two together. Come to think of it, I don't think any of the notes ever said my name. I admitted that the notes had been happening all year and explained that I didn't want to make a big deal about it. Then my friends launched their investigation that I had been worried about. All the girls in our friend group became detectives trying to solve this mystery. One friend, who didn't have a fourth period class, stationed herself by the lockers to surveil the area. That worked. The notes weren't from a shy freshman, or even from a boy. They were from a janitor, an older woman none of us knew. We all recognized her, but I don't think any of us had ever talked to her. She'd been leaving these notes for several months, watching me closely enough to comment on my outfits, field hockey games, and even what I posted on Facebook. I saw her at the last field hockey game of the season. She sat quietly in the stands. That was the only time I noticed her watching me. But I have no idea how many places I didn't notice her watching me. None of us brought this up to her. She hadn't done anything wrong, but it felt unsettling in a way that's hard to explain. And then down in the comments, Anne Beast Jeb, I think. Plot twist, you're the daughter she put up for adoption long ago. Yeah, I mean, maybe she thinks that you're a relative of hers? And Black Converse 020 says, I mean, a grown adult was not only stalking you at school, but was also following you on Facebook. A grown adult that you barely even knew, no less. There's nothing to explain. That's just straight up creepy. Yeah, I agree 100%. That is really odd. Like, I know that there was no, like, sexual intentions behind those letters. There was no, like, threatening behind those letters. I mean, to be honest, a grown woman sending a child letters like that they don't really know can be construed as threatening, I suppose, but there was no threats is what I mean made in those letters. But still, again, even followed you on Facebook. Very odd. Very, very odd. I mean, again, they could have had good intentions, but yikes. This next post is simply just titled Creepy FedEx Driver. This is a long story, so stick with me. I, 23F, am a bartender. I have some crazy stories where I've been genuinely scared for my life, but this has got to be the worst. I'm working a double at the restaurant. Around 11 a.m, a delivery man comes in with a package that I had to sign for. He comes, I sign for the package and tell him to have a good day with a smile. I continue my shift per usual. This was a Friday or a Saturday, I can't remember specifically, but later on, we got busy. The restaurant and parking lot, full. I see a lot of different people daily, plus seeing someone, for the second time ever, out of their uniform, you may not recognise them. FedEx driver comes and sits at the bar. I don't obviously remember him from the 25-second interaction we had that morning. I start talking to him as I do with all my customers. I get him a drink, appetizer, another drink, entree, etc. Our conversation started. Him. How long have you worked here? Me. A few years. I've worked my way up. Him. How do you like it here? Just regular conversation with a bar guest. It slowly became not so regular. He asked me if I had a boyfriend. I said yes. He would change the subject and then go back, complimenting me, saying how beautiful I was every few minutes. Can I have your number? No, I don't think my boyfriend would appreciate that. Okay, what's your last name? We could just be Facebook friends. All annoying, but normal interactions I've had with men in this industry. He started to become really pushy over time, pressing for my phone number or social media. I continued to politely decline and laugh it off. He then tells me, I actually came this morning to drop off a package with FedEx. You signed for it? I came back, just for you. I smile and continue with my stupid customer service, oh yeah, I remember you. Smile and laugh it off. I even stepped in the back to vent to my manager at this point about how he was being extra pushy and uncomfortable. Flash forward about an hour, he pays his tab and leaves. I'm just glad he's gone at this point. Well, we'll say as a guess it's about 7 p.m. when he leaves. We are still busy and we close at 10. We finish dinner service, customers slowly start to leave, and the restaurant is finally empty. I've been cleaning for a while and I'm finally finishing up. It's about 10:30 at this point. I'm cleaning the bar. I look up. The whole front of the restaurant that I'm facing consists of large windows that face the parking lot, and I see one car in the parking lot. I notice that the delivery driver, guest from earlier, is standing outside of the car, walking around it, and seeming like he is cleaning the back seat out. Doors open and he is leaning in and out with a bag. As soon as I realise it was him who had left almost 4 hours ago, my heart sank. Why is he still here? Why was he cleaning the back of his seat out? I freak. My manager and I are the only people left in the restaurant at this point. It's almost 11. I run to her and I tell her everything about how he came back just for me, and about how he had seemingly left 4 hours ago, and I made her come from the back of the restaurant to behind the bar up front so she could see him in the parking lot, I don't know, waiting for me? She says she's going to call the police. At this point, my boyfriend and I had an apartment literally 5 minutes away from the restaurant. I told her not to worry about it. I'll just call my boyfriend to come get me. I did just that, but my boyfriend could immediately tell something was wrong. And when I'm scared, anxious, I ramble. So I gave him a quick debriefing of what was going on. He said he would be there soon, and I hung up. My manager made me sit in the office until he got there, so I didn't see this go down. All I remember is my boyfriend coming in the restaurant to get me, walking me to the car through the back door, and getting me home. My boyfriend, who is very confrontational and protective, later tells me that he pulled in the parking lot to see the FedEx driver sitting in the driver's seat of his car. My boyfriend walked up to his car and knocked on the window for him to roll it down. He does, and my boyfriend tells him something along the lines of, "You need to get out of here." This is where the scariest thing happens. The dude responded to him in a different language, mumbling and acting like he didn't speak English. My boyfriend said something like, "I know you speak English. You've been talking to my girlfriend all night, and you need to get out of here." Dude continued to ramble in a different language until my boyfriend raised his voice and basically said, "You have 15 seconds before I pull you out of this car, and you never leave this parking lot," for the guy to finally put the car in drive and speed off. I was on edge for weeks after this interaction, and even considered switching jobs. Why was he still in the parking lot that long after close and hours after cashing out his tab? And why was he cleaning his back seat? To the creepy bar guest, delivery driver, let's never meet again. OP then adds down in the comments, also, forgot to add, if the restaurant was in his daily routine, so was my apartment since it was very close to the restaurant, like a few streets over. I remember a few weeks after this happened, walking the trash out to the street and a FedEx truck turning on my road. My heart immediately sank, and I'm 98% sure it was him driving. I started walking extremely fast back inside, but I was again scared for weeks, thinking that he might know where I live, and I have since moved. I am so glad you have moved, OP, because oh my goodness, how scary. Like, he knows where you work. And then he possibly knew where you lived. And yeah, I can't think in my head any good reason for him to be hanging around still and cleaning out the back seat of his car. Oh, creepy, creepy, creepy. Because you'd already told him you had a boyfriend. You'd already rejected him enough times. Once should have been enough, but clearly he didn't get it. But after however many more, you'd have thought that he'd have gone, oh, okay. I can't think of any other reasons than nefarious reasons for him still being there, so I am so glad your boyfriend scared him off, to be honest. And then down in the comments, Maintain Improvement said, call the police and give a description. I don't have a lot of faith that they will do anything, but it's good to have documented. Call FedEx and explain it to them. Escalate it. Demand to speak to someone who oversees this route. If this is a problem, it sounds like your boyfriend is capable and could help. I wish you well. Yeah, exactly. For anyone else, if they're ever in that position, if a delivery driver who knows where you live or knows where you work makes you feel that uncomfortable, take it to the company, because they will probably scare them into never doing anything weird, and take it to the police so it's recorded. You know, you can never be too careful, especially when someone knows where you live or where you work. Now on to our final post titled, He Lived in My House. Hi, this is the first time I'm sharing something here, so I hope my story will be easy to understand. By the way, this isn't my account. For privacy reasons, I won't give my name or age. For a bit of context, this happened about 2 years ago, a few weeks after my little brother was born. Ever since we moved into this house, there's been this small room in the basement that's always locked. To show you how little anyone uses it, I don't even know what's in there, but I've always assumed it's just utility stuff like meters or something. The room is really tiny, barely big enough to lie down in. Now, let's get into it. My parents went away for a weekend together, leaving me, my oldest sister, and my baby brother, who was just a few weeks old at the time, at home. My parents trusted us to take care of ourselves since they'd done this before. Anyway, that night my sister went out with friends and wasn't planning to come back until 4 or 5 in the morning. I watched a good movie, and since it was already getting late, I decided to put my little brother to bed in his room upstairs. I did that and came back down to watch another movie, but I ended up falling asleep. About 2 or 3 hours later, around midnight, I woke up to these strange noises coming from upstairs. At first, I thought it was just the neighbours, since they can be pretty loud and the walls are thin. But then I looked at the time and I realised it was too late for them to still be awake, let alone making that kind of noise. So I got closer to the stairs to investigate, and just as I was about to go up the first step, I heard the sound of something metal falling on the ground. Guess what? It was the key to the small room in the basement. I immediately grabbed my phone, and instead of calling the police, I texted my friends to tell them what was happening. One of my friends had the brilliant idea of calling the police for me. Suddenly, I heard the bathroom door slam shut. I knew it was the door because it makes a very specific creaking noise when it closes. I remembered my brother was sleeping upstairs, so I carefully went to check if he was okay. Thankfully, he was fine. Still, not fully grasping how much danger I was in, I went to the bathroom door. Since it opens inwards, I decided to violently push it open, and I heard a man scream. I immediately shut the door and held it closed to keep him from getting out. He broke the window, and outside the bathroom there's this tiny sort of balcony, not a proper one, but you get the idea, that connects to the balconies of the neighbouring houses, which are all really close together. He used that to escape. I grabbed my brother in my arms, ran to the kitchen, and noticed that one of the knives was missing from the knife block. I picked up another knife and I crouched in a corner of the living room, crying like never before. The police arrived and I opened the door for them. When they searched the house, they confirmed that the bathroom window was broken, and I had hit the guy so hard that there was blood on the floor. But the most shocking and traumatizing part was what they found in the small basement room. There were blankets and cans of food. They concluded that he had been living there for several days. And that's it. I hesitated a lot before posting this because it really affected me. And I'm sorry if the story isn't super clear. Some of the details are still jumbled in my head. Anyway, I hope you found it interesting. And then down in the comments, General396 says, "Oh God, what did your parents and sister say when they heard about this?" And the OP replies, "They were horrified, just like me. We slept at their friend's house for a couple of weeks after this." Like, yeah, I mean, to be fair, I don't know how old you are because you haven't said. I am very concerned about the fact that your parents left you alone with a couple of week-old baby if you were like in your teens. If you were an adult, okay, fair enough, but I just have a feeling that you are not, considering the circumstances. You live at home, you've got a baby brother. I can't imagine you can be any older than like 20, I would imagine. I could be wrong, but I could imagine you can't be any older than that, surely. I have a feeling, though, you're probably a lot younger. What on earth were your parents doing, leaving you at home alone with a couple of week-old baby for a whole weekend? Other than that, though, I am really, really creeped out by this because why was there a knife missing? What was this guy planning to do? Like, oh, no. It gives me shivers. It gives me shivers. And the thought that, you know, the OP's first thought was to stop and text their friends and then confront the intruder. Like, fair play, OP. Biggest balls on you going, but my goodness, please never do that again. Never ever again. Oh my goodness. These stories about home intruders are really creep me out. That is one thing that I think is the freakiest. And it's the most violating as well, because that is your own personal space. And I do apologize if I'm starting to sound very croaky, by the way. I feel like I might be losing my voice. So yeah. Wow. My goodness, those were some insane stories. Insane. They're not like that long, but the connotations behind them, that is what's so freaky, I think. Oh no. No, no, no. Now, as promised, let me give you my very own Let's Not Meet story. So, I'm going to set up the background first and give you a little bit of context. Where I am now, live very, very rurally, in the middle of friggin' nowhere, which I like. For this reason, actually, quite a big part because of this. This is why I took this house. I used to live quite urban in a high-rise flat next to an industrial estate and a load of housing estates, like really, really populated, well-populated area. And I lived at the top of these high-rise flats. Now, I say high-rise, they aren't that high-rise compared to a lot, but for the town, the big town that I was living in, they were, and I was at the top. One night, it was probably about 1 a.m, I would say, and I was kind of listening to the normal Saturday night crackhead chorus, as we would call it. They would all come out. They would all come out the woodwork and be out in the street, bloody singing, screaming, crying, shouting, and fighting at each other. It was not a nice area where I lived at the time, I will admit. And I was there alone with my youngest, who at the time was only about like 1, I would say. My eldest was with their grandparents on holiday. Obviously, the youngest couldn't go because they were too young and would not be away from me. So yeah, that's how that was working out at the time. So I'm sitting there, I'm in the living room. I was actually doing some drawing, I think. I couldn't sleep again because of this flaming crackhead chorus outside. So I couldn't sleep. And the next thing I know, I hear a knock on my door. Now, a knock on my door in the middle of the day is enough to send me into a blind panic. I do not answer my door if I am not expecting someone. I do not ever answer the door at nighttime. I don't care if you're like my best mate and you've messaged me saying you're coming over. Unless it's an absolute emergency, I ain't answering that door. It's not opening. The lock is staying on. The deadbolt's staying on. The chain is staying on. So, of course, I kind of do as any sane person would do and crawled along the floor to the door just so I could kind of try and hear who was behind it. And then more banging. And then someone starts to try to open the handle. And they're trying really hard to open the handle. They're rattling it. And next thing, they're kicking the door. They're knocking it. They're banging it. They go, and it's this bloke. It's some random guy. And he's shouting, "Let me in. Let me in my house. Let me in my effing house." He didn't live with me. I don't know where he thinks he was. But this guy basically thought my house was his and he is trying to kick the door in. I surmise, obviously, that he's probably either drunk or dread up, you know? So I'm freaking out at this point because I'm here alone with my little un. So of course I did what any sane person would do, grabbed a sharp pointy object from the kitchen and started screaming from the other side of the door that if they didn't go, I was going to turn them into cutlets. Not my smartest idea, but I just thought, you know what? Freak them out, scare them, act insane back. So I did. Probably not the smartest way of dealing with it, but I was freaking out and I went into full protective mode. Anyway, they wouldn't go away. They were still trying to kick the door in. I was so lucky that these doors, once you locked them, they had like a deadbolt on like in 3 segments all the way down the door. And they were really hard to get into, these doors, to the point where police hated if they had to raid any of the neighboring flats because you would hear them trying to get in and they couldn't get in. There was a few times when they tried to do dread busts and they couldn't get in. They would have to try and climb in through a window if it was low enough. So eventually I did call the police and I don't know what happened, but this guy just kind of got bored and left. And I went over to where my little balcony bit was and kind of peeped through the curtains and watched him leave. Anyway, the police turned up and they couldn't find him. And I was just left then, there, having a panic attack. Didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Ended up having to call someone to come and pick me up because I was not staying in the house that weekend. I can tell you that much for free. So yeah, I was so glad when I got offered this place, really, really rurally. And I snapped it up. And I'm so glad I did because not only am I no longer in a flat, I'm in a nice house. I'm also in a much safer area, which is fantastic. Yeah, that is my Let's Not Meet story. I would not like to meet that bloke. I dread to think what would have happened if he'd managed to get in. And now and then I think about that and it still makes me feel physically sick. Okay, so that's the end of the video for today. A very different one today. I hope you enjoyed it. I actually really enjoyed reading these stories. As much as I enjoy reading the other stories and snipping in with my commentary here and there whenever I've got a thought, I did really enjoy sort of reading these stories from start to finish to keep the atmosphere going, you know, and it kept me in a good flow to be able to read them better in a way that wouldn't sort of ruin it, if that makes sense. I wanted to make sure that I could read them in a bit of a spooky way. I hope it conveyed well. Probably not, but I tried. But yeah, if you enjoyed and you made it all the way to the end, I appreciate you very, very much. I hope you liked my own little snippet there with my own little story that traumatized me. So yeah, if you'd like to give us a like and a subscribe, I'd be very, very grateful. And it'll help you find your way back here because I do post every single day. Other than that, I'm going to go and try and, you know, watch some funny cat videos or something. As a palate cleanser, because it is actually really late at night and now I have to go to bed. So yeah, goodbye.